Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to make a mosaic out of UICollectionViews with Swift and Xcode. So let's go ahead and get started. You good. Alright, first thing we need to do is open up Safari or whatever web browser you use, and we are just going to search FM Mosaic Layout. You can of course just look in the description down below and the link will be there, but either way you can search. So we have the FM Mosaic layout, and here it is. So basically this is the template that allows you to put your collection view cells into this awesome mosaic array that I've found. So now it tells you how to use it, the customization, how you can customize all the mosaic cell size, and it also goes through the installation. So now let's go ahead and right down here in the installation, it says FM Mosaic Layout is available through CocoaPods. So we go ahead, click on that website, or it'll be linked in the description down below, and it is cocoapods.org. Now in CocoaPods, this allows you to basically take their frameworks and plug that into your application very easily. So to install CocoaPods, you just need to open up Terminal, and then type in this phrase that you see right here just by copying and pasting all that in. Right now I already have that installed, so I'm just going to go over to Xcode, create a new Xcode project, and I'm just going to call this a single view application and call this my mosaic layout. And the language will be set to Swift and our devices will be set to iPhone, although this will also work for iPad. So now we have the iPhone, click next, and create. And now if we were to make this a bit bigger, we need to go up here and say File, New, File, and this is where we're going to create our pod file. Now it also takes you through creating a pod here, but for some reason it's not allowing me to actually edit the pod itself. So I basically just stuck to the way I've been usually doing it, with just going File, New File, and then this will be in Other, Empty. So you want to create it empty, go Next, and we're just going to call this our pod file.podspec. Create, and now this is our pod file. So now if you want to figure out where your pod file is stored, we can right click and say show in Finder. Now in Finder it'll show you it right in the location that you want it to be. I stored mine on the desktop so it would be a lot easier for tutorial purposes, but now we actually need to take Terminal and access this pod file and install the frameworks needed from this pod file. So let's go ahead and navigate over to our desktop. So say ls, this shows you where you are right now. So we want to say cd desktop to head over to the desktop, then ls, and then we want to head over to mosaic layout. And this is also very important why you would name any of your files with no spaces. So we have cd mosaic layout. And now if we were to show what's inside of our mosaic layout folder, you can see that we now have our podfile.podspec. Now for this podfile.podspec, you want to add a few things. So let's head back over to cocoapods.org and say get started. Now over here in get started, we basically want to copy all of this code that you see right here and just paste that right into our podfile.podspec. Now for the target, we want to change this to your actual application. So if you head over to a mosaic layout and you head over here, you can see targets. So you have two targets, your tests and your mosaic layout. We want to target the mosaic layout target. So now we need to go over here to our podfile.podspec and just type it in. So it'll be mosaic layout, and be sure to put in the capitals as you see them. And I'm just going to indent these pods just for good measure. And now while you can install the pods right now, we need to head back over to cocoapods.org and head back over to our FM Mosaic Layout on GitHub. Now down here you will see it says pod FM Mosaic Layout. So we need to take this line of code right here and add that right underneath the rest of our pods. And now if we were to go back over to our terminal, we need to say pod install. Now for some reason it says no pod file found in the project directory, so we need to head back over to our podfile.podspec and just long press on the podfile.podspec, and we just want to delete the .podspec part of it. Then click enter and that'll save that. Now if we head back over, hit ls just to make sure that we were in the same file system that we had before, and now we can type pod install. And you can learn about all of this in Create a Pod, installing, and everything like that. Now let's go back to terminal, and as you will see it says analyzing dependencies. So it's looking through this line of code right now, and it's going to install the pods as soon as it realizes that these are all correct. Now, as you can see, it's installing all of our dependencies for FM Mosaic Layout, FLK Auto Layout, AF Networking. And now, as you can see, it says integrating client project and everything is installed. Now, down here, it says please close any current Xcode sections that use Mosaic Layout.xc workspace. So we need to close out of that Xcode project that we had before and head back over to our Mosaic Layout file and open it now by Mosaic Layout.xc workspace. So if we were to double click on this now and open it up a bit bigger, we can now head over to our Mosaic Layout.xcode project. Now, for some strange reason, it wasn't allowing me to access my Xcode project that I had before, but now it's allowing me to since I just restarted Xcode. So now let's open up our Mosaic Layout again, and we can make this a bit bigger. And let's head over into our viewcontroller.swift. Now, inside of our viewcontroller.swift, we need to change a few things. So right over here, we're going to change the class of this. You can name this whatever you want. I'm going to keep mine viewcontroller. This will be just the main viewcontroller. And I'm just going to change the class of this to a UICollectionView controller. And then go comma, UICollectionView data source. And lastly, we will have the UICollectionView delegate. So now this is all going to edit a UI collection view. Now let's head back over to our main.storyboard, and we're just going to delete the view controller that's already in there, and then head over to our right side column, and we're going to add, and we need to make this column lift up a bit more since it wasn't showing before, and we need to click and drag a collection view controller on there. So now that we have our collection view controller on here, we can set this up to the class that we created in our viewcontroller.swift. So now head back over to your main.storyboard, go over to the identity inspector, go to class, and we're just going to set the class to viewcontroller. So now whatever you put in the viewcontroller.swift will edit the main.storyboard viewcontroller that you named over there. Now next thing we need to do is install the framework that is now stored in your pods where you see FM Mosaic Layout. So this is basically the code that allows this Mosaic layout of your collection view. So now we need to hook this code up to our viewcontroller.swift. So in order for us to do this, we need to go File, New, File, and we're going to go to a source, Objective-C file, click Next, and we can name this file pretty much anything. Click Next, and it's going to ask us if we would like to configure an Objective-C bridging header file. And of course, we want to do this. This is the main reason why I created this .m file. So click Yes. And now this is going to allow the Objective-C files of the FM Mosaic layout hook up to our Swift files of our viewcontroller.swift. So let's go ahead. We can just delete this .m file that we created right here, move that to trash. But we need to keep this Mosaic layout-bridging-header file.h. And inside of here, we want to say hashtag or pound import. And this is going to be importing our FM Mosaic layout. And it's not going to give you any filler ins, so it's kind of you have to spell everything properly or else it's going to give you an error. So we want to import our FM Mosaic layout / FM Mosaic layout.h. And we can just build and run just to see if we have any errors at the moment. And it builds and runs just fine, so we can see that we're getting a few errors. That just means that this scene is not being able to shown and that these collection views are not being shown properly, so do not worry about those at the moment. And now in here in our viewcontroller.swift file, we want to import our FM Mosaic layout. And this will allow us to add the Mosaic layout to our collection view controller. So now in here, we need to add another superclass, and this superclass will be FM Mosaic Layout Delegate. So it's going to delegate how our UI collection view controller looks. Right now it's giving us a few errors, but we don't need to worry about that just at the moment. And now we need to add a few lines of code. So if we go head back over to the GitHub page, you will see that there are lines of codes that show you how to import this into your project. So right here it says FM Mosaic Layout, but these are all written in Objective-C. So we just need to copy and paste this so we can actually write this in Swift. So in order for us to convert this to this, we need to say var mosaic layout colon FM Mosaic layout will be equal to FM Mosaic layout dot allocate. And now if we go underneath there, we need to say self dot collection view layout will now be equal to Mosaic layout. and we can just delete these lines of code that we have now down there. And that should not give us any errors. And then if we head back over to our GitHub, it also says that we need to have our collection view layout right down here. So we need to go back and say collection view, and this is going to be the one that says collection view layout number of columns in section. So if we follow this out, collection view number of columns in section, and we're going to return 2 at the moment. There are going to be 2 columns that are going to be displayed. Now, in order to fix this problem that we see right here, we need to add a few more lines of code. So we say collection view, and this will be cell for item at index path, and we will add code to this in just a minute. And then we also need to have collection view number of items in section. Now, how many number of items do we need? We'll just return 10 at the moment. It doesn't really matter. We will change that line of code very often. And then we need to go back up here to this other line of code that says cell for row at index path, and we need to create a cell. So we say var cell equals collection view dot deq reusable cell with reuse identifier, and this reuse identifier we will call this cell. Basically, this is if we head back over to our main.storyboard, click on our collection view cell, you will see that if we head over to the attributes inspector that we have reuse identifier, and we just want to type in cell, capital C cell, or whatever you want to call it really, and we just need to access that the same way in here. So now we have cell for index path, and this will be our index path. And then it's waiting for a return of a UI collection view cells. So after this line of code, you need to say as exclamation point a UI collection view cell, not controller, cell. And then we need to return cell. This is returning the value of the cell to this right over here. And now, as you can see, we're getting no more errors, so that is perfect. And if we were to head back over to our main.storyboard, click on our cell, we can head over to the background, and we're just going to change it to any color, really. And we also need to take this view controller, select it, and say is initial view controller. And now let's head back over, build and run. And now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 items displayed. So there, that's a good start, but now, as you can see, there's no gaps, it just looks bad. You can't really even tell that these are separate items. So now, in order for us to tell that these are separate items, we also need to add a few more lines of code. So we're going to say collection view, and this is going to be inset. So if we type this in, you will see that there's an inset part of it. So go ahead, click on that, or you can tab all that in. And it's waiting for a return of a UI edge insets right down here. So we need to return our UI edge insets. So we can just type in UI edge insets, open parentheses. Now basically what this means is we're adding edges to all the edges of our view controller. Now if you don't want any edges on your view controller, that's understandable. I'm going to add some pixels around my view controller. So let's head back over, go top, left, bottom, and right. And now if we were to build and run this, you will see that we now have edges. I accidentally showed it with the edges before, but as you can see, we have 2 pixel edges on the sides now. And now next thing we want to do is actually add edges to each of these cells. So in order for us to do this, we just say collection view, and this is going to be interim spacing for section at index. So go ahead, tab all that in. And now we have interim spacing, and you can see that it's waiting for a CG float, or just a number of how big your edges for each of these cells is going to look. So we're going to return 2 pixels. And now if we were to build and run this, you will now see that we have gaps between all of these. Now say you want more items in your section, you can easily go back up here, and we're just going to be a bit crazy here and add 10,000 of these cells, build and run, and you will see that we now have 10,000 cells. But one thing that you'll notice is this is quite boring. It's like nothing's being really loaded onto the scene. You're just scrolling through a bunch of cells. So to make this a bit more interesting, we can head back over to our DQ reusable cell with identifier up here in our collection view, cell for item at index path. So first thing we need to do is I'm actually going to make everything a random color. So in order for us to do this, we need to go over here and say var random blue will be equal to a CG float. and this is going to be a drand48. Basically, it's going to pick a random color in the blues. And then we need to do the same for our greens and blues. So say var random green will be equal to a CG float, again, drand48. And close that off. And then we need var random red equals CG float drand48, close. And now we have our randoms green, blue, and red. And it'll pick a color in between all of these random colors. And now we need to pick a random color out of these random blues, greens, and reds. So in order for us to do this, we just say cell.background color will be equal to a UI color. And then open parentheses, we're going to do an RGB. So type in our red, again, will be random red. Our green will be random green. And our blue will be random blue. Our alpha, we are going to set this to 1.0, meaning that everything is showing up properly. And now if we were to build and run this, you will see that we have random colors coming up on all of our cells. So there you have it, we have a bunch of random colors. This is cool, and before I get carried away with a bunch of random colors and the building on of things, we also need to see, okay, these are just plain old squares right now. So we need to actually set these collection view cells to look cooler, like an actual mosaic. As you can see, there's some big images lined along with some smaller images. So in order for us to do this, we just say collection view. And this will be the one that says mosaic cell size for item at index path. We can tab all that in, and it wants us to return a value of our FM mosaic cell size. Now this is kind of a cool thing to do. So if you say return index path dot item, so this will be every so-and-so item, so say I pick 2, every second item equals 0. So basically every second item that is shown, it's going to pick between an FM mosaic cell size big or an FM mosaic cell size small. And now this is going to give it a cool effect, and this should actually not be 2.0, this should just be a 2. So now we have index path.item, so for every 2 items it's going to either give us a big cell or a small cell. So now if we were to build and run this, you will see that every 2 items it is going to be big. So we're getting big, little, big, little, so on and so forth. And you can edit this to your heart's content. You can put 20, so every 20 cells it'll pick big. So there you have it, we have the big, and then we go past 20, and then we have another big one, and so on and so forth. And you can do, I think the best looking one is around 7-ish. That way you just get a nice big, little, big, little, and so on and so forth. Now this is all cool and all. You can see that everything looks awesome. We are going to put images towards the end of this tutorial. I won't deal with images just at the moment. We will deal with images for this in just a moment, but we need to head back over here, and we're going to go up here to our collection view, cell for item at index path. And inside of here, now we want to say dispatch after. So we're going to dispatch, or basically do things after this certain time. After this certain time, it's going to be queued after this certain queue, and we're going to run this certain block. So now when do we want this to happen? Now when do we want this to happen? Well, and the delta for this is basically meaning how fast is this going to happen. We want to say int 64, open parentheses, and this is going to be our milliseconds delay. So we actually need to create a new variable up here. We're just going to say var milliseconds delay will be equal to, and this is going to be how many milliseconds do we want this to be equal to. So we can say UINT64, open parentheses, arc for random. So we are going to pick a random number between 0 and 600 milliseconds. And then we're going to take this number and divide by 1,000 to make this milliseconds. Then we need to add another parentheses at the end of that. And there should actually not be a parentheses at the end of that. And now we need to go down here to our int64, and down here we want to say milliseconds delay multiplied by the nsec underscore per underscore sec. all in caps. And basically this is going to dispatch it right now, and then it's going to fade in at a random milliseconds delay. Now we need to go back in here to our queue, and inside of our queue we want to say dispatch underscore get underscore main queue. And then our block, we are going to run a block. So we need to say open parentheses, open curly bracket, enter, and then at the close curly bracket. And then right in here, we want to add another parentheses after our curly bracket. And then after those parentheses, we need to say dash arrow void in. So this is basically going to run this block that we have inside of here. Then we need to also end with one more parentheses than it shows us. Now, what do we want to run? Well, we want to run an animation. So we need to say UI view dot animate with duration right down here. And with duration, we're just going to set this equal to 0.3 seconds, very quick. We don't want this to be so bad that it just basically doesn't allow the people to work on their app. And then what animations do we want to happen? Well, we want to run a block. So just say open parentheses, open curly bracket, enter, close curly bracket. And there we will have our animations. We want to set our cell.alpha equal to 1.0. So it's going to make it perfectly clear. Now right now it's saying we're having this extra argument and call. In order to fix this, I forgot to add a parentheses right here. So we just need to add that right after where it says nsec per sec. And now we need to delete that extra parentheses that I put down there. And now if we were to actually build and run this, you will see that everything's going to animate on. So let's scroll through, and I guess while it would animate on, we need to actually fix something real quick. We want to set our cell.alpha equal to 0. And this is going to be outside of all your animation stuff, so we want to just set this as soon as all the cells are created. Now let's build and run. And you will get this nice fading effect as you scroll through all of these boxes. Now for the image portion of this. So in order for us to add photos into all this Mosaic stuff, we need to go over here to our images.xc assets, and then click and drag all of your images that you would like to have inside of your images.xc assets. So let's go ahead, I'm going to make this a bit smaller as I have a second display and it doesn't drag over easily. So go ahead, click and drag our image 522 and all those other ones into our images.xc assets. Go over to our viewcontroller.swift. And I will be showing you how to actually take these images from parse and put it into your application on a different tutorial. But right now, here we are, I'm adding a bunch of images into this Mosaic layout. And now let's head over to our main.storyboard, and inside of our main.storyboard, we can head over here to click and drag an image view into our cell. And then our image view, we want to right click or control click and drag from that to our cell over here. And we're going to say center vertically, horizontally, trailing space, leading space, top space, and bottom space. Now enter, and that will make it so it's perfectly sized in all of the cells that it is created in. And now we have this image view. Click on this image view. I'm going to make this part a bit smaller, and I'm going to make my window a bit bigger. Now we can click on this image view, and it'll say view mode. What kind of mode would you like this to be in? Well, you can have your own choice, but I like aspect fill, as it's going to keep the image just the way you would like it, but it's going to fill it properly. And now we need to head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and we need to access these images in our images.xc assets and put that into an array and grab that array and put it into our cells. So now down here, right above our view did load, we need to write in var images array equals, and this will be an array of strings, so just put brackets around string, and then after that add parentheses, open parentheses, close parentheses. Now we need to take these images that are in our XE assets and plug that right into our images array. So down here in our view did load, we just need to say images array will be equal to open bracket, close bracket, open quotation mark, close quotation mark, comma, and we will have 5 images, so I'm just going to add 5 open quotation mark, close quotation marks. Now in our images.xc assets, I have these 5 images. They're just img underscore 5222. Now we need to head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and I'm just going to type that right into there, img underscore 5222. And I'm just going to copy and paste that so it's in all of our quotation marks. And then I have image 5223, 4, and 5, and lastly 6. As you can see right here, that matches all the names. Now let's head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and we want to say inside of down here where it says the number of items in the section, we want to return the images array.count. So we're counting the amount of images that are in our cell. And then now we need to also grab that UI image view that we created in our main.storyboard. So let's head back over to our main.storyboard, click on our UI image view, and we're just going to set the tag of our UI image view equal to 2. And now if we head back over to our viewcontroller.swift, and we just want to say in here, we need to create a new variable, and this will be our image. So basically we say our image will be equal to our cell.viewWidth tag. So we're going to grab this UI image view, and we're going to be able to edit now that we created the cell.viewWidth tag. And again, the tag was 2. And this is going to be as exclamation point a UI image view. And now we need to go down here and say image.image, or we can actually change this name so it's not so confusing. We'll say image view, and then now we can say image view.image, and this will be equal to a UI image, open parentheses, and this is going to be named string. And what is this string going to be? It is going to be our images array for the index path dot row. So for every index path dot row, we are going to grab either this image or this image if it's cell 2, cell 3, cell 4, and cell 5. And now we can head back down here and we can actually build and run this. And as you will see, now we have a mosaic layout of all our images. Now this would look a lot cooler with a bunch more images, but here you see it. We have the big image with 4 little images, and again you can edit this to your heart's content. You can add more columns, so if say I want 5 columns in this, I can do that. So say return 5, and now I will have 5 columns. Or you can also go down here and we can change the spacing or change the mosaic layout of this. So I want to change this one to 2 so that we have more big images since there's not so many images in this. And now we have 3 big images with 2 little images. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more tutorials like this from me in the future, be sure to subscribe. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Hey, buddy.